Van Allen belt level, deli steady, ready aim. Steps more like Big Daddy to Eddie Kane.
Welcome, everyone, to the Way of Kingz live podcast. Thank you all for coming out. This is episode 2. We've had some delays because of the weather, but we appreciate you all's patience. We appreciate everyone who has come out to participate with us. Headcrack keeps reminding me about my mic. So, again, I have my co-host, Headcrack.
What's up, y'all? Make some noise for yourselves. You guys are amazingly dressed. Y'all look like y'all can go leave here and do something cool. And this is cool, too, but it look like y'all can go somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, after this. Y'all all look amazing. Shout out.
After party after this. Here. We're going to put on the music, and we're going to, like, cut a jig. Isn't that what you say when you're, like, 50?
Yeah, people haven't said that in a while, but, yeah, the jig can be cut still. Yes.
We can get jiggy with it.
We can get jiggy with it. See,
yes, indeed.
I love how you did that.
Yes.
So we have our other co-host, Mr. Kevin Williams.
How's everybody doing?
And our special guest host, Trey Mason. Now, I'm going to let Headcrack introduce Trey in the way that he deserves to be introduced. And then I'll do a better job of introducing my co-host.
No problem. The mimosas are mimosaing is all right. So my brother Trey Mason right here is a gentleman I had the opportunity to meet probably about almost 2 years ago in a similar scenario. We were at a bookstore for a friend of ours who was leasing a project, and online he goes by the dating commentator. One thing I always hear people talk about is like, the dating scene in Atlanta is crazy. Like, all my single friends want to be outside. Wait, hold on. No, all my single friends want to be inside. All my married friends want to be outside. And, it's that city mouse, country mouse thing. Everybody want to be on the other side of the grass. And on his podcast, he helps navigate the dating scene and all the ups and downs and many more. I could explain it, but he could explain it better. One time, y'all, for Trey Mason. Tell us about your podcast, brother.
All right. Thank you so much. But again, Headcrack, thank you for this.
Thanks for coming through.
This is definitely something, this is my genre, something that I've been doing for over a decade, but I let people know that as a dating commentator, I am not a relationship expert. I'm not a strategist, whatever you want to call it. I'm a dating commentator. I have just as many questions. I have just as many flaws, but I am committed to helping make Atlanta the epicenter for dating, wellness, and marital prosperity, particularly for African Americans. That's what I plan on doing. All my content is solution-based, and I'm just ready to move it forward.
Well, all right.
I love that. I love that right there. Solution-based. And I will say that there is so much content out on the internet right now, especially related to dating and stuff like that, that is not. That people are just talking, and there is no solutions. And that's why I think Headcrack picked our perfect first special guest, because you are definitely in alignment with what our goals are. We were kind of talking about this before the podcast started in terms of what his understanding, when you hear the Way of Kingz, what does that mean to you? Now, I want to point out, we do actually have some certified relationship coaches in the house. We have Antonio and Margot from the Love Rekindled.
Okay.
And they have a special thing to tell us about before we leave, so we'll get back to that. Now, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, I want you all to understand who you have in your presence. Headcrack, who is a comedian, a rapper, a TV show host, a radio show host, and our audiovisual specialist, and you do a couple extra things.
I'm a Swiss Army knife person. Like whatever tool I need to be for the day, I'll be that. I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy to see some familiar faces. And big shout out to everybody who came back for the second episode.
Yes.
Ice storms and all, you know what I mean? So, it's so dope to see y'all back in the place again, and thank you so much for fellowshipping with us. And big shout out to the people who are housing us here today.
Yes.
The Real Milk and Honey, you know what I mean? An immaculate menu they offer with things you could pronounce. Food you've heard of. Salmon, biscuits, burgers, chicken, grits, eggs. The whole kit and caboodle. Big shout out to them. Everything on the menu is amazing.
Yes, it really is.
Lamb chops.
Yes.
With the grits.
With the grits, which I never would have thought of putting together, but it works. Along with a mimosa that we had earlier that was peach and green apple that tastes like a Jolly Rancher. Amazing. Mr. Kevin Williams, self-made multimillionaire, investor, entrepreneur, mentor for men.
Well, I don't know about all that, but I try. And my main thing is I really enjoy trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B in a systematic manner that will allow us to all be successful. It doesn't have to be luck. We don't have to do it all on our own, so to say. We should be able to pool our knowledge, have a step-by-step process to wherever you want to go to, how to get there and how to get there successfully. So that's what I really enjoy, and that's the part that I want to try to add to this podcast.
We appreciate you. Now, Headcrack.
Yes.
You have a special segment that you are planning to do from this point on.
Yes, indeed. So the segment is called Move Better. A lot of times we are stagnant because we're stuck in old habits, old patterns, and don't know how to advance. What we fail to realize sometimes is people, individuals, human beings, organisms, that, the things that work for us in our youth don't necessarily always work for us as we get older. I used to be a person who used to be able to pride myself on the fact that every bit of information that was given to me throughout the course of the day, over a matter of time, weeks, whatever, I could remember it. Kind of like the old school people who used to run the numbers for the old people back in the neighborhood back in the day. Like, I ain't writing nothing down. Brain. Listen, the world that we're living in now, they throw a lot at you. And sometimes things get, lost in the sauce, fall through the cracks, and you kind of get behind on yourself. So I know a lot of people have these different practices that they do between point A and point B. I just want to help you move better just in case you're not where I am, because I was one of those people who was just still going off of memory up until the point that where it's like, damn, I'm missing some things here and there. Oh, man, I'm like overbooking myself. I am misscheduling yourself. We have every tool available right now that previous generations didn't necessarily have, whether it's the usage of AI. And I know sometimes people use AI just to make it, what would Sexy Red sound like if she was on Motown? No, there's so many different ways that you could use AI better. You could use apps like ChatGPT to not only maybe whip up a meal plan for you for the week based on the items that you have in your fridge, but you also can use things like that to help you put together a schedule for yourself to keep you accountable. Most phones come with a note app. I'm an iPhone person. I don't know what your notes are called in Android. Probably something unrememberable like the Put It Here app.
Shots fired. I just called it straight.
He has an Android too.
Yo,
what y'all do?
I just called it straight.
Their airdrop is called Nearby Share. It's the word. But all that to say, you got to get to a point where you got to stop mopping yourself into a corner and start, course correcting some of the mistakes that we make. Because listen, the older you get, the less things you remember. Your brain is like a hard drive, and it gets to a point where that hard drive starts to get full and you start forgetting things. So you got to start writing things down and put together a system that works for yourself. And a lot of these AI tools can help you do just that. So these things ain't here necessarily just for your entertainment solely. They're there to help you move better. Utilize these things. Understand it. There's not really too many things that's going on in the world that you can't go on YouTube and get a quick little crash course on how to utilize.
Like changing a tire, like we talked about last week.
Yeah, good for people who don't know how to change a tire. There's somebody on YouTube who will teach you how to change a tire right now, and they might do it in a funny voice that you'll remember. You know what I mean? So all that to say, you're never too old to learn something new, and you're never too old to recalibrate the habits that you had and you started off with to help you move better. So whether you're doing these sort of things on a Chat GPT or other AI apps like Chat On, there is a whole toolbox out there in the world for you to utilize to help you be the best, most efficient version of yourself so you can go tackle this world that has 1,000 demands for you, all right? So I'm Headcrack. I'm just here to help you move better. Hopefully this help, and, we moving on.
Thank you. So this is a segment that Headcrack will be doing with us every podcast, and he will connect it to different areas of life. I love I wasn't quite sure what the direction we were going to go with it overall, but I love how, since this podcast isn't just about principles, it's about tangible stuff that will help men become men, help develop and elevate the consciousness of men, right? So last week, I keep trying to say last week, last podcast, episode 1, our pilot episode, we discussed what a real man is. What does manhood look like? Because what we have established is that it is a skill set that has to be developed. Back in the day, there used to be rites of passage. You didn't just wake up when you were 18 or 21 or whatever the ages we're using now and you're a man. What they used to say is you're of age. But you had to go like slay a lion or some shit. Like you were not just magically handed the keys to the kingdom. Or what did you say before we went live? You were a prince. You were not just magically coronated as a king.
Transform overnight.
Exactly. But there are no rites of passage anymore. We're just handing out the title man like it's candy. And there is not, from what I have seen, which is what sparked this podcast as a whole, a lot of resources out there that is really demonstrating what real men are, who they are, and how they move.
The messed up part is like if like slaying a lion was the current prerequisite for being a man, there'd be like 7 men per state. You know
Legitimately.
Yo, for real.
What'd you say?
I'm gonna just run it over.
Run it over. People get real creative about slaying lions. However, one of the things, so just so you all know, the pilot episode is available on the Way of Kingz YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and put in the Way of Kingz podcast, you have, and Kingz with a Z. I had some flavor on that.
Other one was taken?
No.
Okay, let's make sure.
Wow, Headcrack.
I was making sure. All right, cool.
We had to add some cultural assignment to the podcast, right? So the first episode is available online. Just as a quick recap, we took R.E.A.L in Real Men and made an acronym out of it. So R stands for responsible and reliable. And some of this was some of the feedback that we got from the audience last time. A lot of people had the opportunity to share what they thought a real man is, what manhood was. And actually, I think I took reliable from Hurricane because it was just responsible at first. So I added. So we're evolving here.
Well, amendment.
It's called growth.
It's called growth. E stands for earnest and trustworthy. A stands for accountable. And accountability is a huge reason we're here. There is not enough accountability in our community. There's not enough accountability in relationships, in friendships, in parent-to-child situations. We just out here letting each other do shit that don't make no sense, and that's not helping. And the last one is L for leaders. Real men should be leaders in their community. They should be leaders in their profession. They should be leaders, and this kind of goes in with Kevin's segment of getting rich with us and really being the best and being excellent at anything you do. Actually moving better. Leadership is not just the traditional way that people think about it in a relationship dynamic. And we talked about that in depth last week. So please check out, I keep saying last week, please check out our pilot episode on our YouTube channel. Now, this podcast, we're talking about the opposite of that. Now that we've established what a real man is, now we have to talk about the reality of what even causes us to be here. We wouldn't be here if there was a bunch of real men around, right? We would not be here if everyone understood how to move better. We would not be here if men understood what even being a man was. So one of the things that we've identified is that, one of the things that we've identified is a syndrome that men who are not being real men suffer from. And I say suffer from because part of it has to do with there being a lack of examples in our communities, a lack of real men being leaders to show what that looks like. So we call this silencer syndrome. And silencer syndrome is an acronym as well. So I'm going to read off what it is, and then we're going to go to the audience, And I want you guys feedback in terms of what your experiences are, what your knowledge, what your perspective is on the opposite of a real man. Looks like we got more people coming. So S stands for selfish. For any woman here who has ever been in a relationship with a man who was selfish, it has a huge impact on the quality of that relationship and how you as a woman especially experiences that man dynamic. If he is focused solely on himself, where do you fit in? Where are you being provided for, taken care of? And that is something that comes from what I've seen so far. It's come from never really growing up past that childhood stage. When you get to be selfish when you're 10, your parents take care of you. You don't have anyone that you're responsible for taking care of. There's no one else that you are responsible for serving. And actually, Headcrack said this last week when we were asking what a real man was. Someone said a real man becomes the solution. And Headcrack says, I am always looking to be of service. And that is one of the biggest things that I would say sets real men apart from non-real men, is that real men are always looking to be of service. Not just service to the partners that they're in relationships with, to their children, to their communities as a whole.
Want to add value.
They're not just self-serving. Exactly. They want to add value. Then we have I for insecure and immature. Pretty self-explanatory. L for liars. E for egotistical. N for narcissistic. And we hear a lot of narcissistic stuff on the internet. C for cheaters and cowards. And you and I were talking about the cheater culture right before we went live. E.
I'm not a cheater.
I am not a cheater.
I'm not a cheater.
E for empty of purpose and direction. Now that one is huge. So last week I gave out a homework assignment for all of the men and actually women to do a variation of this, which is to identify what kind of man you want to be. You have to be driven by a guiding light, by a North Star, by a purpose. If you're not, and you don't have something to check your moves based on, you just out here doing shit. And you're leaving collateral damage in your wake. And the last one is R for resentful and reckless. Again, as a woman who has been treated recklessly in a relationship, it's not fun. No one wants to be treated haphazardly, especially when you're a valuable person. But no one should have to experience that, period. So that is the acronym that covers my perspective of pretty much everything that's wrong with the men in our culture. I want to know what you all's thoughts are. What's your perspective? What do you feel like is the issue? What traits, what is causing us to have this problem? Margot, I see your eyes going up. You look like you got a list. You're processing. I love that.
She had a question?
I got you.
Did Margot have a question? Okay.
I do feel in our community there's a lack of real men in the community. And I think when I go back to when I grew up, we had granddaddy, we had the coaches, we had the principal at the school, we had, uncles, we had the community. And I think ultimately, to your point, I think we have to figure out a way to bring that back because the leadership is lost. We had, even when you think on a bigger scale in the community, we had Martin Luther King, we had Jesse Jackson, we had men who were symbols from our community, but they were making change. And like Crackhead say, serving in the community. So I do think we need to get back to that because that's what our community is missing.
You said Crackhead said or Crackhead said?
I thought she said
Clear for that. That's cool.
crackhead.
I was thinking of like a regional dialect thing, but whatever.
I wasn't going to
You said
call her out.
Crackhead said. The mimosas are very strong tonight. I just want to point that out. But Queen, one thing I will say about that, and you definitely have a great point, but, one thing that sometimes we as a people have a tendency to do is quickly be like, who the hell put him in charge? we are never happy with the people that take the lead. You know what I'm saying? Whether we're assassinating their character or be like, why them? Or, or we let, outside forces put a crazy label on those people. If Jesus came back today.
True. Very true.
We'd be like, who made you in charge?
Who's you in charge?
Who sent you? You know what I'm saying? So, so we have to be a little bit more trusting and I guess,
open to and
also support the people who want to support the communities and play a part, because it does take a village. And I feel like so many people have been popped on the hand or like maybe been treated a certain way for trying to step up that a lot of people take a hands-off approach to things. It's a lot different than what it was when like maybe our parents were coming up, or depending on what pocket of time you come from, like maybe you caught the tail end of that. But I've seen a lot of people kind of just shy away from that because of fear of rejection and like, you know what, man, people gonna make it difficult for me to try to help, so I'm gonna fall back.
I think that's a solid point also that the sister made, because it does take a group. Every parent just trying to raise your own child, that parent might not be the best communicator, might not be the most effective one in showing love and communicating and discipline, and it's a lot that goes into making a well-balanced individual. So when we try to do it as a community, as a village, as a group, it's easier because even the qualities that might not be your strong suit, someone else can add. But when you're closed off, you don't allow that same assistance. But I think that's one of the first things that we as a group need to be more clear with ourselves or upfront with ourselves about what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are.
Can I bounce off that?
Go on.
I just want to bounce off that because, we can, regardless if it's a podcast or whatever the format, we can come together and we can talk about leadership, masculinity, whatever the case may be. But there also needs to be a consistency in terms of what are the traits that embody someone who is a leader or a real man. Because, growing up, I'm from Memphis originally. You can go to the barbershop and the same, pastor is in one chair and a pimp is in another, both talking about manhood. But it's like, okay, who do I listen to? Well, the pimp says some things that make sense. Okay, maybe as a real man, maybe I should, keep my pimp hand strong, my hose, or something like that. But if that's your idea, if you're a young, impressionable, or whoever you are, and you've already fixated on that individual as this is my idea of a real man or a leader, then those are the traits that you're going to transition into whatever posture of masculinity you transition to, and you're going to think, I'm a real man. So it doesn't matter if it's the pimp, the pastor, the congressman, these are all examples to other people of what a real man may be, but we need to be consistent and get on a format of, look, these are the traits, qualities, and characteristics that are really indicative of someone who dare call themselves a man or a leader. Because anybody, regardless of, even if you want to transition over to politics, some people may say this person is a real man because they believe in this set of politics versus this person. So we need to be, I think, clear on, what are some
that criteria.
Some criteria. And again, there may be, some differences here and there, but we need to have a baseline of, okay, a real man is ABC, X, Y, and Z. A real leader does this, that, and the third.
And if I could add on real quick, to any men who want to assume that leadership role, make sure your intentions are right.
Yeah.
Like, don't volunteer to teach the Pop Warner Football League because you want to smash some single moms. You know what I'm saying? Make sure your heart is truly. It's a whole ecosystem of dudes doing this. You know what I mean?
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing. Like, dad ain't around.
Y'all are serious.
Pull up. Real men, fake motivations, facts.
That ain't a real man.
Your intentions got to be right. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you make it harder for the people who are really out there trying to do the right thing. Oh, let's get this brother on mic.
Well, we got a mic coming. The switch is off. Turn the switch on. There we go.
How are real men really being received today? Let's have a real conversation.
You got an amazing voice.
I know.
I mean, that
Okay,
that's pretty much the question.
So my question, I need some clarification. He needs to keep the mic because I got to get more clarification. In what context? Because I know I'm not holding my mic. Headcrack pointed out initially about how it's hard when we have collectively as a community made it hard for people who are trying to do the right thing. So do you mean in that context, or is there other framework?
So just to bring it in, even in the house, the real father is almost outcast. He's the disciplinary. He's the hard person. He's the person to get outcast. And over time, that'll weigh on you as a father. So we really have to understand how real men are being received today. And support. That's another thing. Because I don't think we really having that conversation.
So I guess my question to you would be, as a mom, I understand what it's like to be my children to get attitudes and be mad because I'm being a mom and doing what I have to do, especially as a single mom. So I think I can relate, but I'm not a man. So my question to you would be, obviously our children aren't in the room. Well, some of mine are, but generally speaking, our children aren't in the room. So what is it? Is it the wives that the men are needing support from? Is it the children? Where is the actual missing piece? Yeah, just might as well keep it.
I actually think it's missing like all around. If we honest about it, if you're a real man, they'll say that you're aggressive. It's certain things that are said by real men. So when I hear certain things, what I say is that's a good man. That's a good father, because we are the disciplinary. It's certain things that come with it. And I just think this is a great conversation, but I think we do have to really talk about receiving a real man, what he really looked like. He's going to be a little hard. He's going to talk a certain way. He's going to walk a certain way. It's not pretty being a real man. And I think we want the real man to be pretty and it sound good, but it don't work for a real man. We going to say some things. And so that's why I think it's coming from all over with real men. And I think we have to really have a conversation to receive us better and support us better.
I 100% agree with supporting anyone who's trying to do the right thing, right? Generally speaking. And because there are, in my opinion, very few men who are moving in that way, I think identifying...
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
See, that's part of the support I'm talking about right there.
Okay, so
that's part of the support right there.
Let's talk about that for a minute. All the handful of people in this room, out of, what is it? How many billions of men are there on the planet? We wouldn't even need to be having this conversation if there were really that many real men. We're having this conversation because that is a deficit. And there are men, and kind of Kevin pointed it out, like there are men who may be responsible and reliable, but they may not be earnest and trustworthy. They may be, there's different aspects of men being real men in different, segments. But the whole, across the board, that is a rare thing. And if it wasn't a rare thing, we wouldn't be doing this.
To your point, I think real men are created to be perfect. And that's pretty much what you lean into. You want a real man to check off every box, but nobody check off every box. And I think that's part of the thing that men run into. We almost have to be perfect to be considered a real man. And that's unfair to us. And I'm not making excuses for men, but it's one of those things.
No,
because women lack if we.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. So, first off, I agree that we have to put some attention to how we're received. But and that's one of the reasons why we want to do this podcast. It's not going to attract everyone. Everyone's not about solutions. You have some people that are always going to have some criticism, some cutting you down, especially on the internet and things of that nature. It's not going to attract everyone. You don't go to, and this is a saying, so don't take this literal. You don't go to a club looking for a church girl, so to say, meaning you have to be speaking to the right audience. So our reception, yes, it does need to be proper, but we also need to be speaking to the right people. If we're not speaking to the right crowd, you'll never get the right reception. So that's a couple of things. A lot of times as men, we want what we want. We want her because she's pretty, she's gorgeous, she's this, that, and the other. But if she has all the characteristics that you're not looking for, but you want her to accept you, again, you're in the club looking for a church girl, as a saying. Now, that's the first part. Second, as it pertains to men, I agree, and I say that all the time. Every man has to understand and really work on expounding on his strengths and recognizing his weaknesses. Every man's not going to check every box and so on and so forth. You have some people that are very well-rounded. You have some people that work hard. They're not very expressive. You have some people who are very expressive. Maybe you can't count. But in other words, the idea of it is that we're trying to attract and educate those that are looking to improve. Everyone's not looking to improve. Some people are extremely comfortable with where they're at, and they will defend it to the end of time. If that's the case, fine. A lot of this may not be for you. So we are trying to work on both sides of that, the reception and making sure that we're speaking to the right people, and then we give some keys to assist us in doing the things that will develop us along the way. So it is a process. It does take a community, and it's not just one thing. And one of the worst things that we can do is when we're talking about our own growth and development, one of the worst things is we can point out somebody else's flaws or problems or so on and so forth. That may be true, but it doesn't have anything to do with the part that we're supposed to be working on developing. If one thing at a time, and once we're able to master that, then we can deal with the next issue. It has to be a systematic approach as opposed to like, hey, you telling me to do this, but you don't do. They might not, but that's really not the topic. Let's try to keep it streamlined in our growth and development is what I'm saying.
Headcrack, you were going to say something?
I mean, I think you hit a lot of valid points. At the end of the day, I think far and large, there are a lot of great men out there, fantastic men. And, and the thing is, it may not always, look like what people's picture of what perfection is. Nobody's perfect. We all fall short of the glory.
Nobody's perfect.
We just got to round up. You know what I'm saying? If there's 10 boxes we trying to check and 7 is passing. You know what I mean? Don't miss a great opportunity or a great individual because, like he checked all those boxes, but I hate the way he briefs. So, same thing when you trying to find like a queen to match your king energy. You know what I mean? Listen, they might be beautiful, but terrible with money. Right. These are things that we got to help each other on. Like, everybody's trying to complete a puzzle here. Right. We are all jagged puzzle pieces trying to find our other piece to connect with.
On a podcast one time.
Yeah, I'm running with that. That's my campaign for 2025. We're all jagged puzzle pieces trying to connect in and fit with people that complete us. That's what makes a great partner. Not Absolutely. A person who does the exact same thing that you do. Those people that fill in the 30% that we might be lacking. You know what I mean? So, it's about finding that, but you also have to be confident enough in your manhood to accept the help that you need when you need it. Because sometimes, I ain't asking for directions. I've been here before. You know what I mean? Right. You gotta be man enough to know, hey, listen, I need help here, and and that's that on that. And also, women, we have to be a little bit more understanding because there's so many people I run into that are like, oh man, I met a guy I like him, but he don't make enough money. Well, what if y'all got together and then figured something out to where y'all can both get it out of the mud? Because you might pass up on this good dude and get with a rich dude who beat you. Right. And can afford to cover it up, did he?
Wow.
And get a what to cover it up?
Before to cover it up, it was a drive-by.
Okay.
Drive-by stuff.
So I wanna number one, make sure that I give credit where it's due. Let's give a hand to all the great men that are here in this room and out on the interweb stratosphere that will be paying attention to this later. And I want to clarify something as well, and because Antonio mentioned, this concept of perfection, or I said we were talking about high value men last episode. And we talked about it not being the fictional dynamic that Kevin Samuels had created, et cetera. But my personal takeaway for that was a high-value man is someone who is always willing to evolve and change. So to me, this person doesn't have to be perfect now, but he does, and I'm not asking him to ever be perfect. That's not really, perfection is not the purpose of life, right? We should always strive to be better, though. So if you are a man who is on a constant pursuit of evolution and growth, that to me is a real man. even if you're not there yet. It's okay. You're on the journey. I'm not where I want to be yet. I am a woman becoming, not the end result.
Slow motion is better than no motion.
Exactly. So with that context, as we talk about some of these traits, some of the things that are happening the way they're supposed to and some that aren't, let's approach it from the perspective that as long as the man or woman in a relationship, for example, is willing to change and grow, then there is something to work with. It's when someone, I think Kevin mentioned this, it's just like, nope, this is how I am, deal with it, put up with this. Then you don't really have nothing to work with. But as long as someone is looking to become better, then that is what a real man or woman is, as far as I'm concerned, or a high value man or woman.
If they're guided in a principle, because again, for me, if you're talking about real man or real masculinity, I am looking at someone who is guided by, number one, a higher power, with whatever he wants to call the higher power, God, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever the case may be. He's guided by a higher power, guided by a purpose and ambition. He wants to do something so he doesn't result in what she was saying, being stagnant. I'm in the same place I was 2022. At the end of the day, I'll explain this. We all, regardless if you have, Android or your little iPhones, you can.
Y'all know how he said y'all little iPhones.
I got to fight back. Regardless, and because I make this analogous to myself. If we can accept the fact that every single year our phone goes through an update, and
what about us?
What about us? Because at the end of the day, it's like, regardless, it's 2025. If you're the same person you were, in 2023, then where's your update? Where are you moving? What are you doing? Do you have that plan? Are you sticking to that plan? And so for a leader, if you're someone who refers yourself as a leader, you understand that you are responsible for somebody or a group of people. There are people watching, people following you because you are leading by an example.
Yeah.
You have to set that example. You have to set the tone, set the precedent. And so, with that said, there has to be not only that purpose. I mean, we talk about purpose. Each and every one, we have a purpose, something you want to do. There's a destination. But what are you doing? What actions are you taking in your everyday life, big or small? They don't have to be, big, but what tangible, concrete actions are you taking? And if we're talking about matching that or making that parallel to masculinity, understanding you are setting examples. Somebody's watching you. Somebody's following your footsteps or wants to follow in your footsteps. So what guidelines, what roadmap, what blueprint are you setting, so that the next generation can be, can exceed? And so that's something I feel like even with these conversations, because again, even with leadership, masculinity, whatever the case may be, is that going to translate from Gen X to millennials to Gen Zs? I mean, are we all going to have the same exact examples or the same understandings of what a real man is or what a real leader is? And so that goes back to what I was saying in terms of making sure baseline, we know we have these qualities that we understand. Look, at baseline, a man is this. A leader is this.
The book is being written.
The book is okay.
The book is being written.
In progress. And so, because, again, what a real man is to someone a millennial that grew up in L.A. may be something different than a Gen X that grew up in New York, or someone raised in a barbershop, or someone who was raised in the church. They may have different opinions, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but there needs to be a framework, an overall, look, regardless of where you come from, regardless of if you grew up in the 80s or 90s, or if you were born whenever, a real man is responsible. We can agree to that. A real man is going to, be accountable for himself. He's going to take charge, whatever the case may be. We can have these overarching traits, these characteristics. There may be nuances, and we have to accept the fact that, look, we can line up 10 men in a row, all referred to as a real man. They may not all be the exact same, but they all demonstrate qualities that exemplify what a real man or real leader is.
Agreed. Very, very well put. So we have actually your segment coming up in just a second here, but I want to ask the audience, we've been having a really good discussion about this concept, and for anyone who has not participated or those who have already, anything that you would like to share on this subject related to, again, the last episode was focused on what real men are and what that looks like. And this episode is focused on us identifying the problem so we can solve it. So if you've had, as a woman, because we have some women in the audience, if you've had experiences with men in your life that represent something other than what you think that is, tell us, especially if it's something that we haven't discussed already, hasn't come up. What is that? And if you have a perspective on what caused it, let's talk about that too. Because that's why I call this silencer thing a syndrome. Because most people, most men, I don't personally think, and Kevin and I have a slightly different viewpoint on this. I think that people are genuinely, naturally good-hearted, and they want to do the right thing. I think that there are other factors, like how people are raised. Just like they say, you know, racism is taught. It's not, you're not born a racist, right? So there is influences that people have in their experiences in their life that cause them to lean towards one way or the other. But I genuinely believe in the good in people. And I think that people want to do the right thing, but I don't think that everyone knows how. And I think, like Trey said, there is the wrong influences out there. A lot of, especially this generation's influences, are rappers. And there's everything to do with drugs, you know, alcohol, women on poles. It's just foolishness. And that's their main, example. So I recognize that things like this conversation that we're having is necessary to change the way that people think about all of it. So is there anyone in the audience that would like to share anything in terms of their perspective on the opposite of what a real man is? Yes, ma'am, Jen.
So it's not exactly a perspective, but
is it on? Okay.
It was something that I was thinking about as you guys were talking, because Headcrack mentioned what leadership looked like, and I feel like honestly the root of the issue is that the community lacks respect for Black men. I feel like it's hard to lead if the respect is not there. You have to have people that's willing to listen. You have to have people that's willing to follow. At the end of the day, you will only listen and follow if you respect the individual. So I think I wanted to open up for you guys. Do you feel like there is a lack of respect for men? Like, do you feel like you've experienced that personally? And if so, how do you feel we can change that? Like,
Kash, is that your hand? Yeah. Yes. Okay.
While he's passing it to Kash, I'd like to hit on that. There's definitely a lack of respect for Black men. However, again, that's not by happenstance. That didn't just happen. That's a purposeful. That was put in place systematically, purposeful, and it yields results still to this day. So that is something that, in us correcting it, we can't whine, bitch, moan, or cry about the circumstances that are making it hard for us to correct it, and so on and so forth. Work still has to be done. It doesn't really matter about the other circumstances, although I do agree that it makes it somewhat difficult, and you hear a lot of naysayers, and it's a lot of roadblocks in the way. Work still has to be done. It's the same thing if we were dealing with construction, and now the weather turned bad, and now some other things came up, and delays in supplies, and so on and so forth. It still has to take place. So we work around those barriers. We still keep working in the positive direction. And that's all that you can ask of someone. When we get into relationships, whether they're in business or personal relationships or family relationships, whatever they are, you're expected to do a certain amount. The other person is expected to do a certain amount. And the excuses are really just a lot of noise on the outside. They are going to come up. Everything's not going to be easy. It doesn't change the goal. It doesn't change the method to get there. So I do respect that. That is true. But we can't worry about how people respect us again. If we're doing the right thing and saying the right thing, we will attract the right crowd.
Agreed.
We will always have someone that has, something to say about it. But we will always attract the right crowd, those that are looking for the same things that you're looking for.
Hallelujah.
Your point was so good.
I know.
Your point was so good, Kev, that I almost forgot what I came up here to say. I think the original question was something to the effect of whether or not a real man's take, opinion, or whatever is being respected. And what you spoke about is something that's important because I feel like conversations and things like this are necessary because one thing that we don't give enough credence and credit to is the fact that men and women don't necessarily think the same about a lot of different stuff.
Very true.
Mm-hmm. And until we have open conversations where both are in the room providing input and like really receiving and getting feedback, we don't have a clue what we're working towards.
Very
right?
true.
Because Charleston White, not really a favorite person of mine, but he makes a very important point in a lot of the things that I see him in publicly where he says that a real man's opinion isn't going to be popular. It isn't necessarily going to be the thing that people want to hear, you know? And because of that, conversations like this are important because how do you have a leader that can lead if the people you're leading aren't respecting what you're saying because it isn't popular or isn't easily agreeable? So, what?
To your point, think about every real leader, your Martin Luther Kings, the people who have, your Marcus Garvey, anybody you can think of in history. Do you think they met with opposition? Did you think the road was paved for them with rose petals?
Yeah, the opposition was what they stood up for. They stood up ready for the opposition.
And that's kind of the point, though. There is nothing, and anyone who's started a business, you all know, you know, anybody who's done it, you run into opposition all the time. Opposition is a part of life. And I think that that's where that, like, persistence, that Headcrack and I were talking about consistency, that when your purpose is more important than the naysayers, when the reason you're here and what you have to say is, if it was God has put it on your heart, whatever it is, when that is so important, it doesn't matter. And I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. I'm not saying it's not uncomfortable. But I'm saying at the end of the day, for those of us who are driven by purpose, I don't care if one person shows up to hear what I have to say. I'm going to say it because it needs to be freaking said. And I think that real leaders, men, women, whoever, are going to do what the leaders of the past have done and push by, because we can say, okay, well, that person had support then. We weren't there. We don't know what they had to go through for real. We can watch documentaries and we can watch movies and we can hope and think that maybe this was easier for this person. But in reality, success in the traditional sense and leading people is never easy. So what I'm saying is I think the overall philosophy of anyone who intends to lead or be impactful to others needs to understand that they will have lots of reasons to be discouraged. But make your purpose the only thing that matters. And if your purpose is the only thing that matters, then you will attract people who are in alignment with it, just like all the people who showed up here tonight, right? There's a bunch of people who didn't show up, but look at the ones who did. So it's okay that your message isn't for everyone, but stay focused on what you're here to do. And that resilience will cause you to be successful, like any major leader that we've ever seen.
I mean, I think to add on to that, you know, when you look far and large, right? It's kind of like when you work at a place. You keep showing up, you keep doing the good work, you get the promotion. Being a leader is not easy work.
Nope.
People going to resist you. They're going to be, like I said earlier, why him, why you? Shoot, when you talk about MLK, people always talk about the fact that he got assassinated. But people also don't talk about, you know, very often the times he had stuff thrown at him while he was doing his marches. That time that one chick tried to stab him with a letter opener when he was at a signing or a church or something like that. But yo, most people would have checked out after that. Right. But he came back. He kept going because he believed in his message so much to the point where it physically hurt. And, you know, probably also mentally was taxing. Kids probably wish he was home more, but that's how he ended up being one of the great leaders of our time because, you know, even when things got difficult, he kept showing up, and real leaders get the promotion when they keep showing up. Yes, my brother.
Absolutely. Can we get a mic to Sean? I got it, yeah.
You go in there.
I try.
Right before, you know, can I say one thing? Because if I don't, it's going to slip my mind. Just him using the example of MLK or with anybody who, you know, we can see now, you know, hindsight is 2020, you know, they were a leader. They understood and we can all use this, we can all replicate this, your purpose has to be so grand, and you have to be so committed, be committed to your commitment to your purpose in such a way that if you quit, the pain of you quitting hurts way worse than an attempted stabbing or, someone trying to beat you up or calling you names. It's like, no, you're going to, anytime you're pursuing anything, you're going to face a lot of bullshit. You just are. You're focused on a higher, plane. You're going to deal with bullshit that other people are not or may not be equipped to deal with. But at the end of the day, you have to tell yourself, look, I can quit and lead an easier life. Mm-hmm. If I just stop doing this, then, I don't have to deal with people talking about me on the internet or naysayers or detractors. If I just stop right now and just do what everyone else is doing. But if I do that, I can't live with myself. I won't be able to sleep. I can't shave in the dark, which means I got to look at myself in the mirror. And if I can't do that, then what's the point? Go ahead, Sean.
I'm Sean Garvey, by the way. Thank you for having this important conversation. I think we also need to talk about mentorship because there's a lot of leadership in mentorship. And I think you don't know when you are around a real leader, when you are around a real leader. I've heard people like yourself talk about the era of Martin Luther King Jr. and the Malcolm X movement and even the Panther Party movement, but there was also the Million Man March movement. And even though I never attended, I've also seen young people and people of color attended that march that wanted to go to that type of event to look for a form of leadership. And I think it's imperative that we also have to acknowledge that there were some balls that got dropped after the Million Man March to where we lost our way. And now we have seen an influx of young people joining gangs and gang organizations to look for a certain type of leadership that they could not find in the household. I am a product of a single parent household. And if it wasn't for my mentor, Reggie Gay, in radio broadcasting, I would not be here because he showed me the real definition and what it looks like to be a leader in the community, not just in broadcasting, but what a real male leadership looks like. And I think we need to talk about mentorship a lot in our community, especially for people that did not come from a two-parent household. Because if you don't have that type of mentorship in the community, who else is going to teach your child, teach your young black son how to maneuver and to be a productive citizen in America with everything that is stacked against you? So mentorship and also acknowledging that we as black men need to uplift each other to become better leaders. There's so much ego and pride that's happening in our community, in our world right now, where it's all about, I got to get to the bag. F anybody else, F everybody else. It's all about me. I got mine. You got to get yours. We got to get out of that mindset and uplift the next black generation of men that are coming up, because we're not going to be on this planet much longer. And it's going to be for the next generation to be the future leaders of society. I got my cousin right here who's a few years younger than me, and he's going to be the next generation. And I think it's imperative that we got to continue to uplift each other as black men to be black leaders in society as we have this conversation.
I'm so happy you said that. So next, episode three, that's what we're actually going to deal with, the solution. So to this podcast today was about identifying what the problem is, right? And this episode, the next episode is going to be dealing with the solution, which deals with exactly what you're talking about. But our producer is going to kill me if we do not. Oh, go ahead. You'll be our last audience comment, and then we'll go to Trey Mason.
What the original question about what this episode concerning the opposite of what a real man is, I was thinking about taking responsibility, and what came to me was the victim complex.
Oh my God.
what a lot of, I feel like you almost can't do any wrong because they just don't take responsibility. And if you can't admit, yes, I did this wrong, how is there going to be a solution? Admitting faults or taking responsibility is the first step in fixing the problem. So,
I agree. Hallelujah. That is very true.
I kind of get a kick out of admitting I'm wrong because I learned something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's, we always should be trying to like find the answers to the things that we don't know. Like, I think a lot of us have social cue issues. We misread things. We misread the intent on things a lot of times. And sometimes we might react or overreact in a way that wasn't necessarily necessary for what was thrown out there. And I fall victim to that very often, but I'm always quick to be like, oh, my bad. I definitely, what you threw at me was not deserving of the energy I regurgitated back at you for that. And, and I think, some people just, a lot of men and also women as well have to just be a little bit more humble and be like, okay, I was wrong, because no one's ever going to be 100% right ever. And if you're wrong about some things, it means that you didn't know and you learn something in real time. And hopefully that's a growing situation for both people involved.
Absolutely.
Teachable moment.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, Trey.
Hi.
You're here.
I am. Lucky to be here.
We're happy that you're here. We would love it. And see, Headcrack has, because I haven't learned. I'm wrong, and I do not hold my mic. So Headcrack is being of service.
Yep, servitude.
But Trey, you are a commentator on dating all the time.
Indeed.
In relationships, and you see the both. You hear from men and women, and you see both sides of this conversation. So we'd love to hear. You've given us some of your perspective on what we've talked about thus far, but we'd love to hear any additional notes or perspectives that you have on this concept of real men versus the opposite of that, and what issues that we need to solve for next week's episode.
Okay, no problem. In order for me to do that, I'm going to be a little vulnerable and transparent. That's
Please.
Okay?
Absolutely.
If this is a safe space.
You're in a safe space. The doors is locked.
Safe space, everybody.
Safe space.
Safe space, everybody.
So, I mentioned the word pimp already, once or twice tonight. I have a cousin who's a pimp. Pimp, porn star, a lot of things. And he used to be part of my my community, the ringside community, a community, where I've cultivated, these content, dating conversations, whatever. And so, my cousin, he's eight years older than me, but he's a bona fide pimp, porn star. I've accidentally, seen some of his content, unfortunately. I'm like, oh, that's family. Okay, get it. But I'm saying that to say that while he was a member of my community, he was always castigating men younger than him, saying, men of this generation, we're soft. We're not real men. I'm a real man. I do this and third. And he would always, all these diatribes would be predicated on he pays for everything. I mean, anybody who's on social media right now, the whole 50-50 conversation is still pervasive, even in 2025. We're still talking about 50-50, so on and so forth. He would always, at the drop of a hat, say, I'm a real man. Why? Because I pay for all my bitches. I pay the bills.
But you call them bitches. Okay.
Right. But that's my point. Because I would push back and say, you're a real man, but your bitch is out there sucking dick in snow while you somewhere in a warm Cadillac, safe and comfortable. But you're a real man, though. And so it goes back into these solutions in terms of we need to carefully, as a community and a diaspora, identify what is actually a real man. What does that symbolize, both concrete, metaphorically, whatever the case may be? What does a real man look like to you? Because, again, my cousin who's a pimp will say, well, I'm a real man just because I pay for everything, even though my bitches are out there, risking life and limb to bring me 80%. But I'm still a real man versus someone else who, doesn't pay for everything, but they're faithful. They're romantic. They're considerate to their wife, but you only pay 80% of the bills. She pays 20. You're not a real man. So we're not on the same page. He and I, my blood relative, but we have totally different ideas about what a real man is, and he's just as staunch in his opinion and his idea than anybody else. But we're not on the same page, and I'm using him as an example. But a lot of people, may say, well, Kevin Samuels was a real man. Steve Harvey, that's a real man. You know what I mean? Anybody. But we're not on the same page in terms of, well, what the fuck does a real man do in your eyes? Is it all about money? Is it all about just, male bravado? We're not on the same page.
Can I ask you a question?
You can ask me as many questions you like.
Real quick. The kitchen closes in 9 minutes. Just got to point that out. Shout out to the chef.
So you brought up something that sparked something. So
the mic is your friend. It's your friend. When you're talking to it, people will hear you. It's going to sound great.
So, okay. So this is actually heavy.
It's a workout, too.
It's a workout.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels.
I'm sorry, Kevin Samuels.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Did I say Kevin Williams?
No, I did. That was 100% my fault. That was
okay, just sorry. Oh my God.
Kevin Samuels used to talk about, and I did like a post on this a couple years ago, used to talk about high value men being men who have many options, right? And he, if not completely came out and said, he insinuated that they cheat. That if you're going to be with a high value man, you basically have to accept the fact that he cheat. And my philosophy up front was if he is a cheater, he's not a high value man.
I agree.
If the philosophy, there's some people out here that believe all men cheat, and I do not believe that that's true.
Right.
But if
I'm faithful,
you're faithful. If the average man cheats, then if you cheat, that automatically makes you not high value. You're literally average. That's literally how I view it. And so when you mentioned not only Kevin Samuels, which Headcrack mentioned last episode was a fictional character, which is true.
Oh, he's a fictional, like Dolomite. The iteration of Kevin Samuels that everybody knows is the second coming of Kevin Samuels. He was playing it straight and narrow, giving people the facts on facts on facts straight over the plate, and it wasn't popping because our society is programmed to
look for drama.
Yeah, look for drama, look for the ridiculousness. Just like my brother who was talking about Charleston White. Yo, off the clock. Charleston White is a brilliant dude. He says things because he knows, like, saying certain things in a certain way will get the pop that, will make blogs pick up the content that he's saying. And it's brilliant. If you could put on that game face and that wrestling kayfabe and go out there and say things that'll get the people all riled up so people will talk about you, it's brilliant showmanship to get a conversation started. Lauryn Hill couldn't have said it more eloquently on the Fugees album. After all my logic and my theory, I add a motherfucker so you ignorant niggas hear me. Sometimes you gotta be like, give people a jagged pill to swallow just so they can be like, ah! And then now that you going out, now we're gonna give you the medicine. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
No problem.
And thank you for clarifying that. So the question is, since you and I actually talked about, and that's what brought it full circle, you and I were talking about this concept of cheating prior to the podcast going live today. So my question is, because as we establish what real men are, do real men cheat?
If you're asking me, I would say no. But I'm also, I'm going to take the dating commentator.
What was that?
Removing your
No, I'm my background, my Clark Kent job is public health. I have a master's degree in public health.
Okay.
So
Clark Kent. I love that. We got to start using that shit.
You're welcome.
Yes, I've stolen it officially. Go ahead, continue.
So I would always say from a public health standpoint, you can't convincingly tell me you're a real man if you're putting your girlfriend or wife in harm's way, regardless if it's a STD or bringing home an illegitimate child or a crazy side chick showing up at your house with a gun. You can't tell me you're a real man and you're putting your woman or your family in harm's way being reckless. Now, you're going to have a lot of men who feel the opposite because, again, regardless of, it's the barbershop or wherever, you do have men, and I've been a product of that, you will have men that tell you a real man can balance a main chick and a side chick. I've heard that more than once. Didn't agree to it, But you do have men out there who are viewed by their peers as real, the epitome of alpha masculine men. And they tell you, look, I mean, you mentioned Charleston White. Charleston White's talked about he has his main chick and he got side bitches. But he's also viewed as a real man by some people. Not by me, but there are some people who view someone like him or a Kevin Samuels or whomever as a real man because they resonate with their values. It may not resonate with my values. Because at the end of the day, when I met my girlfriend, I told her, like, look, I'm not a perfect man. I definitely drink milk straight from the carton. I definitely fart in bed sometimes, but I won't cheat on. I will. It happens. But there's certain things, I expressed to her I'll never do. Number one, I'll never call you out your name. I'll never put my hands on you, and I'll never cheat on you. Those are 3 things you can take to the bank. You can take those to the foot of God, okay? I can't see myself masquerading as a real man if I'm out there, getting with other women, then come home and now her health is in danger. Because at the end of the day, I've been in public health for over 20 years. It is the scariest feeling, and I've had this feeling several times, to meet a woman, have an awesome conversation, intellectual conversation, and she tells you, oh, I'm HIV positive, and I got it from my husband.
Jesus.
And I've had that conversation a handful of times. HIV was my subject matter in grad school, and so to encounter black women at these conferences, who speakers or whatever, and they tell you that's how I found out I was HIV positive because my husband was cheating on me. So at the end of the day, I don't care how much bravado you got. I don't care if you're paying all the bills or the case may be. You're putting your woman in danger. Even I don't care if you weren't a condom, you're still embarrassing her.
You're a liability.
Absolutely. So how can you, parade yourself and say, I'm a real man, but I got my main woman over here and I got my side bitches on the side? That, to me, that don't compute. But that's just me. Those are my values.
Go ahead, Mr. Kevin.
Kevin Williams. Kevin Williams.
I think that at its core, one of the issues where there's a lot of controversy on this point is that you're assigning something positive, like saying, hey, I'm a real man, which is denoted as a positive comment. You're calling it something positive. Right. And then you're causing negative to someone else. Mm-hmm. If your positivity is based on the amount of negativity you can cause to someone else, or you're negatively affecting others, and that makes you positive, those two things don't equate. So every time in each of the examples that you gave, if the person has to, like, hey, I'm so great, but they're purposefully making someone else feel lesser, feel smaller, feel betrayed, feel lied to, feel whatever the case is, it's difficult for them to hold that stature of, hey, I'm a positive individual when the effects of what they're doing is negative. So if we look at all the different examples that everybody has given, I think that's the one thing that's consistent. If you feel like you're a positive person and you produce positivity in others, those that you're in a relationship with, those that you're in business with, those that you just meet, that now you can actually claim that you're a positive person. But if you go around leaving death, destruction, mischief, and bloodshed, then it's very difficult for you to say that, hey, I'm this positive individual. I'm a real man, if that's what you leave in your wake.
What does the Bible say? You will know them by their fruit?
So that actually, I think, answers what you've been saying. Like this whole idea of identifying the different variations of.
You want to just keep that close.
I know, right? The different like you were talking about this whole concept that we need to establish the criteria for a real man, right? And that there's different opinions on the subject. But I think what Kevin just said answers that. If the result of your methodology for being a real man wreaks havoc on the people that you love, probably don't qualify. So, but if your actions inspire, empower, if you are serving and investing and providing and securing, then there's nothing negative that comes from that. And that, I think, qualifies you as your methodology being a real man. Now, we've got our last segment with Kevin Williams, Get Rich With Us. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Money figures up. Like
I was
you
born ready.
count money virtually. You know what I'm saying? Rubber like that. You know?
This is what we're gonna start doing. Every time this segment comes up, we just gonna do like this. Everybody,
You're welcome.
So this segment is supposed to be something that we can practice so that we can get better in what it is that we do on whatever level. Since we're talking about relationships today, we're going to speak about one thing dealing with relationships that from both sides. Now, before I actually get into it, I want to make sure that whatever point we're going to go over, we're going to, one, identify it in ourselves and practice it. Every time that we go over points, it's very easy for everybody to say, yep, he does that or she does that, especially if it's something that needs to be corrected. We can all point out like, oh, my brother, he does that all the time, my cousin, my wife, my husband. It's very easy to identify things that need to be corrected outside of self. But those of us who can actually understand it on a different level and so on and so forth, it's because we've actually tried it, we've applied it, we've so on and so forth. So that's the angle that we're going to approach it from. That when we go over this, we want to first apply it to ourselves, then it should help us identify those that are around us. But have to apply it to self first. Everybody in agreement with that, right?
Yes.
All right. So for this idea, we're going to talk about accountability, or its negative counterpart, manipulation. There's a lot of times where something is brought to your attention that you did and not in a positive manner, or the effect of it wasn't positive. You have two types of people. You have one person that takes accountability and looks to start to change and or correct it. You have another person that is manipulative. And
you said manipulative. That's you.
I sure hope not.
I got off the way on that.
What happens with a person that is manipulative, and the reason we're saying that this is the opposite of the accountability, is because it's always pointing back at the person that's bringing it to them. The reason why this happened. Oh, it's the way you brought it to me. It's the way you said this. Or if you would have did this, then I wouldn't have. It's always someone else's fault why your actions are the way that they are. Now, if that's you, you're being manipulative. Your actions are based off the decisions and the things that you did, not what somebody else did. They didn't make you do anything. If there are people that are with you that every time you bring something to their attention, like, hey, this is a problem, we need to do better, and they say, oh, well, if you would have reminded me, if you would have did this, if you would have, that person is not being accountable for their own actions, and they'll point it back at you. Not really good to be around. But if we are the ones that's doing that, whether consciously or subconsciously, you're not a good person to be around. Accountability is very important in relationships, and this is why. That whether this is a relationship of business, family, personal, it's all the same. When you're in a relationship with a business, you expect them to do something, they expect you to do something. Most of the time, it's you giving them money, they providing a good or service. If that good or service does not meet up to its standards, what do you expect? Okay. You expect them to give a excuse as to why? Like, oh, what happened is raining that day and it's wet in the warehouse and it's so. You don't care. You want them to take accountability for it. Hey, I'll correct this. I'll replace that product, or I'll give you your full money back, so on and so forth. That's a company that you will continue to have business with because they took accountability and they did something to correct it. It's the same thing in personal relationships. If you're in a relationship with someone and you can bring something to their attention and they can do the same thing that that business did, they take accountability for it, they tell you what they're going to do in the future, you're saying, man, me and this person are going to work. However, if they're saying, like, well, everybody doesn't like that. You know, my last girlfriend, she didn't, so on and so forth. I think you're just being too picky, you so on and so. They put it back on you. Or if you're the person that does that, every time someone brings something to your attention, you have a reason, and it's that person's fault why you did it. That's the opposite of being accountable in this example. Does everybody understand that? Mm-hmm. So one of the things, that we are going to try to identify in self first, then and those around us is how we respond when things are brought to our attention, whether you agree with it or not. And this is why I say if you agree with it or not, and this part is real important. A lot of times when someone brings something to your attention that you did wrong, the first thing you want to respond with is what your intention was. But what's more important than what you intended to happen is the actual results of it, the effect that it had on that person. So whether you intended it to be this way or not, the fact of the matter is this is what happened or this is how they received it. So it's a small number of people that can look past what their intentions was and say, hey, I do understand that. It's not what I was trying to do, but I do see how that came across. This is what I'll do in the future. Either I'll communicate more, I won't do that, or I'll make sure that I'm clear on what I'm doing. You take accountability and put something in place to correct it. If you can do that, we'll all be richer in our segment of taking accountability. If it's too much and you say, well, I don't know, I don't see it the same way, and even though the person has had a negative experience, whether it's small or large, and you're pointing it back to the person, or this is why you did it, or so on and so forth, all of those things get us further and further away. We're more poor as it pertains to accountability. We're starting to be more manipulative. You always bring something to my attention. I can't do anything right. I can't so and so and so. All of those type of things, it's almost punishing the person for bringing something to your attention. That's being manipulative. You don't down people for trying to make things better. That's a real subtle or like 101 as far as being manipulative. That's what we just
talked about with the leadership thing.
Right.
That
So
would be us doing the same thing.
A lot of points that were being hit on tonight as far as responsibility and accountability is the same. And the opposite of it, and one of the first ways to recognize it is that when it's either to you or to someone else, and I'm sure every one of us knows a person that's that way, that it's always something back on you. Well, I would have got it right if you would have. That's not good. Let's not practice that. Matter of fact, let's practice the opposite. Let's practice the accountability part. So whatever you bring to my attention, whether I meant it that way or not, I want to acknowledge what you said. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do in the future. And that should have solved the problem. Just that acknowledgement and putting something in place to change it in the future. And honestly, a lot of things, if it's a habit, we might not get it right the first time or the second time. But by just sharing your intentions, like, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do in the future. This is what I'm going to do. At least the person knows your heart's in the right place. And in the future, if you do miss it again, say, damn, I miss it again. You're right, but I'll get it the next time. Meaning it's a work in progress. But at least we're starting the process of being accountable. Does everybody understand that? All right.
One time for the homie Kevin Williams.
So we have, I think we did an amazing job of covering the opposite of what real men are, so that because this is not a man bashing podcast. That's not the purpose of this. We're here to identify solutions, but it is necessary to identify the problem first. Because what are you solving if you don't know what the problem is? So today's episode was really geared around us identifying what that is. And I love both Headcrack, Trey's, or I said both, all of our co-host segments, because they all addressed this overarching issue. And I think we've accomplished some things. We've set some criteria for being a real man based on the results. My theory on it versus your theory on it, there's no need to battle about that. What do the results look like? Are you leaving women in pieces, or are you leaving them empowered? And that will tell you if you're being a real man or not, right? If you had a question about if cheating was something that should be acceptable in our communities or in our relationships or not, just what Trey said gives complete clarity that you are a liability to her, to your family structure. And this concept of rich and poor character, this segment of Get Rich With Us is not just about money, and he covered that in the first episode, in the first pilot episode, identifying that poor character is manipulation and rich character is accountability. So, and I love this concept of moving better and looking at all the ways that we can be more effective and be of better service. Because I think, and as the person last week or last session said, real men are the solution. You're a physical manifestation of the solution to the problems that are presented in our community. And next episode, we're going to get into some particulars. And it's funny because Margot and Antonio, you ready? Margot and Antonio shared, we had a conversation leading up to the podcast about the concept of what we're talking about right now and the solutions and what's caused the issue in our community. So we're going to actually get into further detail, and hopefully we'll have another guest host for our next episode. But I want to introduce Margot and Antonio and their company, Love Rekindled, because they have an event coming up very soon, and I want them to tell you guys about it.
Good evening, everyone. I want to say, first of all, this show was amazing. It was so amazing. And we're going to tell everyone that we know about this because it's needed in our community. So we definitely have to get the word out about this. You guys did an amazing job this evening.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
amazing. Oh, yeah, it was great. And so my name is Margot, and this is my husband, Antonio, and we're the founders of the Love Rekindle community. It's a space that we created for people who are in a relationship or married, for couples, and we provide resources for them. Antonio and I, we're certified relationship coaches, and we provide a space where we do retreats, we do conferences, we do all kind of things. We're also heavily involved in the community because that's where our heart is. That's why we do what we do. And we're super excited about the movement that we have behind our community. And also, we just recently opened it up to intentional daters. And we had our first speed dating event about 2 weeks ago, and it sold out. It was an amazing experience. So what we're doing in our community is we're bringing awareness to keeping families together and also providing resources. So in our community, we have therapists, we have counselors, we have all kind of people who are a part of our community that help and provide resources for our families. So next month, February the 15th, Grady Hospital has partnered with the Love Rekindle community, and we're raising money. We're doing a fundraiser for their heart and vascular center. And we're doing that. We're bringing awareness to the community because everyone in this room has been affected or knows someone who's been affected by heart health. And so what we're doing is we're bringing awareness. Grady's going to be there, their COO. They're going to have some of their surgeons, their leadership team there, and also some of their survivors who've had treatment at Grady. So we're raising money. It's for an amazing cause, and Grady is huge, and I'm sure all of us here in this room know about Grady in our community. They do a lot for the community in Atlanta, so we're super excited about it. Please follow us on Instagram, the Love Rekindle. Get your tickets. Come to the prom. If you're not able to come, prom. So it's a prom, and the prom is for everyone, like prom back in the days, right? Yes. So we have the corsages, the boutonnieres. Antonio, his company is providing car service. We have groups of friends that are renting sprinters. They're coming out with their gowns on, and we're all doing it for an amazing cause to bring awareness and to raise funds for Grady Hospital, their heart and vascular center.
And who doesn't need another prom? I mean,
yes,
I think all of us could use an adult prom.
And that was the idea for it, is for everyone to get a do-over, right? Because now we're all grown.
Right.
Some of us are with our significant others, but some of us, we're with our amazing friend group, our community, our tribe. So what better way to come out and have an amazing evening?
Singles or
couples, friend groups, is for everyone. So we have hosts that are going to help our single people integrate into the space that evening. And we also have our couple VIP elegant ambassadors that are going to be there to help, for all the couples and the guests who come out. So we would love for you guys to come out and join us.
Thank you, Margot and Antonio. You guys, thank you all for coming out. I hope that for the next episode that you bring friends and family and adult children and anyone who needs to hear this message. This is a needed conversation. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate Trey Mason for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Energy
Until next time, thank you for coming to the Way of Kingz.
I said gang gang